the birth and evolution of audio cassettes and portable cassette players. The audio cassette, one of the most revolutionary inventions in the history of music and personal audio, traces its origins back to the mid-20th century. This humble rectangular plastic tape not only altered the way people listened to music, but also paved the way for the portable music players that followed. The story of the audio cassette begins in the late 1950s, a time when reel-to-reel tape recorders were common for both professional recording and home use. Although reel-to-reel technology provided high-quality sound, it was bulky, expensive, and impractical for personal, on-the-go use. The challenge, therefore, was to create a smaller, more convenient medium for storing and listening to music. In 1962, the Dutch company Philips introduced the compact cassette tape, which was a revolutionary step forward. Initially developed as a medium for dictation and voice recording,
meet the easiest to operate tape recorder in the world. Philips cassette loading battery recorder. It's easy because tape comes in compact cassettes that you clip in for instant use.
The cassette featured a small, magnetic tape encased in a plastic shell, offering a convenient and portable alternative to the larger reel-to-reel formats. With its 0.15-inch, 3.81 millimeters wide tape, the audio cassette was far more compact and affordable than its predecessors. The original concept of the cassette was not intended for music listening, but rather for dictation purposes, targeting business professionals. However, by 1965, Philips recognized the potential for the cassette in the music industry.
The problem begins at the moment that we introduced cassette. A year after our introduction, there came a lot of imitations in Japan. And then we said, well, gentlemen, if you want to imitate our cassette, you better make a standard, because without a standard, it gets a mess over in the whole world. And that worked. That's the reason that it didn't become obsolete too early. But it's taken 50 years to die.
The introduction of the music cassette marked a new era in consumer audio, offering easy recording and playback of sound on a portable, inexpensive medium.
Music in pocket size and instant loading.
The cassette could hold up to 60 to 90 minutes of audio, a significant improvement over vinyl records, which were limited by side-length constraints. Growth of the cassette tape market. Following the introduction of the cassette, the music industry quickly embraced the new format. By the late 1960s and early 1970s, record labels began producing albums in cassette format, alongside vinyl records. The compact cassette's portability and ease of use made it particularly popular among young listeners who could now carry their music with them and enjoy it on the go. The cassette's popularity grew even further in the 1970s with the widespread introduction of car stereos that supported cassette playback, allowing drivers to listen to their favorite albums while on the road. The success of the cassette also coincided with the rise of the mixtape culture, where individuals could record and personalize their music collections, further increasing the medium's appeal.
First, Philips invented the compact cassette. Then they made the biggest range of cassette recorders. You take one along. You record from your radio, or make your own program.
In terms of audio quality, the compact cassette was inferior to vinyl records and reel-to-reel tapes, but it offered a degree of convenience and accessibility that outpaced its competitors. The cassette also had the advantage of being more affordable to produce, which made it a practical option for both major record labels and independent musicians.
I'm often asked whether this is a Japanese or a Western product, and it's a measure of Sony's achievement in getting machines like this around the globe, creating a new type of object that, and I take no pleasure from saying this, I'm just acknowledging reality, is that nowadays anything as beautifully detailed, as small, and as well made as this could come from nowhere other than Japan.
As the cassette format gained popularity, the demand for portable players began to rise. The key breakthrough came in 1979 when Sony introduced the Walkman, a handheld cassette player that revolutionized the way people listened to music. The Walkman was a groundbreaking device in that it allowed individuals to enjoy their favorite music privately and on the move, using lightweight headphones. This portable cassette player was small enough to be carried in a bag or worn on a belt, offering the freedom to listen to music anywhere and anytime. The Walkman's launch marked the beginning of the portable music player era. Unlike previous bulky, stationary tape recorders, the Walkman was incredibly compact and personal. It had a simple interface, usually consisting of buttons for play, stop, fast forward, rewind, and volume control. By allowing music fans to listen to their favorite tapes privately through headphones, the Walkman also helped to popularize the idea of personal audio and solidified the cassette's place as a mainstream medium for music consumption.
The Walkman and other consumer products have roots in a very Japanese tradition. Take, for example, this traditional Marconucci lunchbox, which contains a wide variety of attractively displayed food. This illustrates how greedy we are to want many kinds of food at one sitting. Over the years, this desire has led to the creation of this exquisite little box. When traveling, people often use lunch boxes, and we can appreciate how cleverly the food is arranged within the confines that F this elegant little box. It is done so that the customer is kept in suspense until the box is actually opened, when the extraordinary variety of contents is revealed. The Walkman is something you want to carry around as part of you. It has many functions which can be operated in a variety of ways. In other words, it contains a lot of information and yet it is easy to carry around. So this Marconucci lunchbox contains a lot of information and it has been made easy to carry around. I believe there's a connection there. So it's not just the square form they have in common. They are conceived and designed in exactly the same spirit.
The initial success of the Walkman inspired numerous other manufacturers to develop their own portable cassette players, leading to a variety of models and innovations over the next 2 decades. The evolution of these players can be broken down into several distinct stages, with each stage introducing new features that improved functionality, convenience, and sound quality. 1. Early Walkman models, 1979 to 1983. The first generation of Walkmans was fairly simple. Sony's original model, the TPS L2, was compact, featuring a 2-speaker design for sharing music and a lightweight, portable construction. Other early models from companies like Panasonic, Aiwa, and Sanyo followed suit, with most models offering basic play and rewind functions, but no frills. These players used cassette tapes that had to be manually inserted, and the sound quality was generally considered good for the time, though limited by the analog nature of cassettes. 2. Compact and lightweight models, 1984 to 1987. As portable cassette players became more popular, manufacturers worked to make the devices even smaller and more lightweight. During this period, the Walkman brand evolved with models like the WM2, which were thinner, sleeker, and easier to carry. This era also saw the introduction of features like auto stop, where the player would automatically stop when the tape reached the end, and auto reverse, which allowed for continuous playback without needing to manually flip the tape. Additionally, battery life was extended, allowing listeners to enjoy their music for longer periods on a single charge. 3. Technological innovations and sound enhancements, 1988 to 1994. As portable cassette players continued to mature, companies began introducing several technological enhancements. One of the most significant developments was Dolby noise reduction, a technology that reduced the hissing and static comment in cassette recordings.
It used to be difficult to play recorded music without hearing hiss, hum, and other noise. Then Dolby Laboratories invented a system which suppresses the noise and lets the music through. Today, almost every time you play a recording, turn on the radio, or go to the movies, Dolby noise reduction has helped make the sound more real. While we like to make as little noise as possible, the Dolby trademarks seem to have earned applause. Dolby noise reduction, the silent performer in quality sound.
to be able to reduce noise without harming the signal was something that people had been striving for, had been hoping for decades. The literature of the 1930s is replete with examples of noise reduction systems that had been designed, and that activity carried on at least until the outbreak of the Second World War. Everyone was hoping for some way of reducing noise, and no one had succeeded. The cure always seemed to be worse than the disease. And naturally, I was fascinated by this problem. I had been working at Ampex, and the problem of noise was well known and understood by the engineers working in that field. My recognition that the noise is really very, very small in comparison with the loudest signal that one deals with in sound recording. And all previous noise reduction efforts had revolved around compressing and expanding that whole signal. In other words, manipulating very loud sounds in a nonlinear way, dynamic way, in order to artificially elevate the soft sounds during the recording process, so that during playback one could reverse all of this and get the loud high amplitude signals back into their normal proportions, and also particularly the quiet signals back to where they should be. And in my first noise reduction system, I set my thresholds of action some 60 decibels below the maximum peak level of the signal. Almost 60 decibels. I arranged a circuit such that only very, very low-level signals could make it through this limiter circuit. It was really a limiter circuit, a syllabic limiter, so that when the signal levels died down to a certain level below the threshold, the signals went straight through, unattenuated. As soon as a loud signal came along, the attenuation would take place. That signal could not get through, and during that time did not contribute to the total signal, which was added together during recording and subtracted during playback. This whole scheme worked together in a hand-in-glove way, such that I could get the noise reduction that I needed when the ear demanded it.
This improvement allowed for clearer sound quality, especially in environments with a lot of background noise. High-fidelity models were introduced, targeting audiophiles and offering superior sound performance. Features like mega bass, enhanced bass response, and graphic equalizers became common, giving users more control over sound output. The more sophisticated models included features like digital tape mechanisms for better playback quality and LCD screens to show track information.
This ordinary-looking cassette is in fact an extraordinary advance in hi-fi technology. There's a recording of Scheherazade on here, but a recording with a difference. Because on that conventional machine, it doesn't sound a bit like music, although that noise you can hear will be familiar to anyone who has a home computer. The music has been converted into computer code before recording. It's digital, and when it's played on this machine, it's converted back into music. Definitely a lot better. This is the prototype. It's the first time it's been seen publicly outside Japan for a standard cassette recorder with the superior quality of digital recording techniques, where music's converted into a series of electronic pulses, so the information can be recorded without the normal loss of quality on conventional cassette recordings. Now, the sort of problems you do get are the variations in tape speed and the irritating background hiss during the quiet passages of music. look on this machine, what can happen when you have an ordinary tape machine and, first of all, an original recording. We've also got a 10th generation copy of the first recording on the second track. That's a copy of a copy of a copy 10 times removed. Now, switch over to that, you'll hear the hiss. Back again to quality and onto the hiss. The sound has definitely degenerated. A real problem on cassette recorders at home, because most pre-recorded cassettes are already 4 generations from the original by the time they go on sale. On this digital machine, we did exactly the same thing. And now I'm going to switch between the tracks, switch, back and switch. And there's no difference in quality. However many times you copy it, a digital recording will always sound as crisp and clear because you're copying electronic pulses which aren't vulnerable to interference like normal recording. Digital recorders like this one have been used for some time in recording studios for almost all classical records. So why has it taken so long to develop a cassette version of this machine? Well, it is quite easy to record music as digital code, but it's very difficult to record that code onto the smallest of tapes. We've got a model here of a conventional cassette recorder, and as the tape passes over the recording head, the music's recorded as a continuously varying signal in 2 tracks for stereo. Now, if we took just a small part of that signal and converted it to digital, the code would take up this sort of space and more. So the designers of the new machine solved the problem by spreading the information over the whole width of the tape instead of the length. Now, on this one, switch it on, the head records over 8 tracks, 4 for each stereo channel. The tapes also run slightly faster, and by using new metal tape with a greater concentration of magnetic particles on it, there's even more storage capacity for the digital code than on standard tape. And that's remarkable because, don't forget, we're talking about tape only 1/8 of an inch wide, which means each track can only be the width of a human hair.
4. Miniaturization and portable design, 1995 to 2000. As the market for portable cassette players matured, new models became even smaller and more ergonomic. The Sports Walkman series, for instance, was designed for active users, featuring shockproof designs that could withstand running, jogging, or other physical activities. These models were waterproof, lightweight, and came with belt clips for hands-free carrying. However, during this period, portable cassette players began facing stiff competition from newer technologies like CDs and later MP3 players, which offered better sound quality and greater storage capacity. 5. The decline of portable cassette players, 2001 present. By the early 2000s, the portable cassette player had largely fallen out of favor due to the rise of digital music players such as the iPod and the continued growth of CD players. With the transition to digital formats and streaming services.
Question for you guys. How many files do you think are being shared on Kazaa right now?
8.
8?
3 terabytes. I have no idea.
3 terabytes? How about 900 million files are currently being shared on Kazaa?
That's a lot of files.
That's a lot of files.
The demand for cassette-based devices dwindled. Still, some niche markets, such as collectors, vintage enthusiasts, and indie musicians, continued to show interest in portable cassette players, especially those that could still be used to play old tapes or create personalized mixtapes. By the mid-1990s, however, the cassette's dominance began to wane. The advent of compact discs, CDs, which offered better sound quality, durability, and convenience, pushed cassettes into decline. CDs quickly became the preferred medium for music lovers, especially with the rise of CD players and CD-ROMs. Furthermore, the growing popularity of digital formats, such as MP3 files, further accelerated the cassette's decline. The proliferation of digital music players like the iPod and the advent of streaming services meant that physical media, including cassettes, slowly faded into obscurity. Despite this, cassette tapes maintained a niche following, particularly in underground music scenes and among collectors who appreciated the nostalgic value of the format. By the 2010s, cassettes saw a minor resurgence in the form of limited edition releases. with some indie artists choosing the format for its retro appeal.
In an era of music streaming and digital downloads, an old format is making a comeback. Stephanie Tsai has more on how modern music audiences are rewinding and hitting play on a cassette tape revival. It's part of our arts and culture series, Canvas.
Cassettes couldn't be more old school. They became popular in the 70s and 80s, an alternative to vinyl. Compact discs had overtaken both formats by the early 90s, but the emergence of digitized music and streaming services has eclipsed them all. Yet cassette tapes are having a moment. According to Luminate, an entertainment industry data collector, U.S. tape sales increased by more than 440% between 2015 and 2022. There's only a handful of cassette manufacturers left in the U.S. One of them is Nick Kashishian, who still has the original equipment he used when cassette tapes were in their heyday.
I retired in 2018. And a month later, I keep getting phone calls from everybody that they want cassettes. And I know there's nobody around here that makes cassettes. And I kept all my equipment. I said, you know what? Let me just do that.
He manufactures as many as 15,000 cassettes a month, a far cry from the nearly 60,000 his business produced weekly during peak popularity.
The history of the audio cassette and portable cassette players is one of innovation, adaptation, and cultural transformation. From their inception as a dictation tool to their role as the soundtrack to a generation's daily life, cassettes helped shape the way we interact with music. The Walkman, in particular, revolutionized how music was consumed, ushering in the era of personal, portable listening. Over the years, portable cassette players evolved to become more compact, user-friendly, and technologically advanced, offering a range of features that appealed to both casual listeners and audiophiles alike. Though overtaken by digital technologies, the legacy of the cassette endures, both as a cultural artifact and as a reminder of an era when music could be held, played, and shared in the palm of your hand.